We can do a couple more if you want, and then we'll hand off once we get a couple tankers out of here. Sounds good.
Don't want nothing. And it looks like that's what I'm gonna get.
Vision 421, I see.
Taking my time and to forget about everything.
That are going to continue the right flank there. Will that work for your end? Real quick, can I see strap first? I do have on the exit, they're kind of south that heel, quarter mile or so. Low poles, but the spans right over the vineyards at the bottom.
I guess that you want something. I can't seem to find it yet. Sometimes I feel like I'm nothing. You say I'm nothing you could ever forget.
Flank and kind of neck, yeah, tanks down, right? Last drop was down towards those tanks. I know it's reach down there, but we'll kind of bolster up the result to get down the bottom. So, from the front.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lookout.
Roll up to the trap.
Another day in Northern California, and it is fire season. Meaning that fires take off quickly and do things. We kind of over predicted yesterday on the Coyote. Coyote got kind of spanked heavily and didn't really have everything it needed to become a big fire. So when we were starting this broadcast, Coyote was not doing much. It hadn't grown this afternoon since this morning. So strong work by Cal Fire. Ton of resources got thrown at that thing, and looks like a good outcome there. Fire is so far it looks pretty stable. But right when we're getting ready to maybe go to the shop and work on some projects that don't involve staring at a computer, new fire in Napa County. So we're going to talk about the Picket. Picket is Picket's ripping, and it's another one of these fires that it's going to make a run today, this afternoon. It started, about 3:30, 3:45, probably about 3:30, and it's running to the top of the mountain. It's in a place where it's got what it needs to run to the top of the mountain, and so we're going to kind of look at what that means. I'm listening to the radio right now, and mainly just air traffic from the air tankers. But let's go over to the Pickett Fire here. All right, so where's Pickett? We are in Calistoga, Napa County. So here's Calistoga at the bottom of the hill. And zooming out for you non-Californians. All those yellow dots are structures. California's crazy. We got a ton of people living in a landscape that burns all the time. So here's Pickett, is this red area out here. And so we've got over here, we got Sacramento. Down here we got the Bay Area. Here we got Napa Valley. And so if we come and fly up Napa Valley, up the Napa River, to Calistoga, this area in pink burned in 2020. It's the Glass Fire. And the Glass Fire started over on this side of things, and then it jumped over and ran all the way to Santa Rosa, but it also burned this whole area up in here. And Glass, when did it happen? It started in October. What happened with Glass is Glass, on this end, it ran into an area that had burned earlier in the season, the Hennessy Fire that had burned in 2020 during the lightning bust. So, Glass, like we said, previous fires show an area's potential for large fire spread. October's late, had some east wind influence, which helped it move hard towards Santa Rosa. Anyway, so this is Glass Fire in pink, and we got all the Glass Fire dozer lines shown in black here. And Pickett is at the bottom of this, and Pickett is experiencing what we popularly call alignment, meaning that it's got everything it needs to go to the top of the mountain. So it's hot, it's dry, some upslope winds, and this fire is going for broke. So this is looking from Mount St. Helena back, and the fire's kind of, Calistoga's down here, and the fire's running up to the top of the mountain in a hurry. Here's kind of a look at it from, here's Napa Valley. And then this is the fire ripping up over the hill from up to the top of the hill right outside of Calistoga. Another view of it is from Mount St. Helena. So Highway 29 is the highway that goes from Calistoga over the top of the mountain to Lake County. Curvy son of a gun. And so this fire is burning out to the west of that in this kind of really remote area that doesn't have a lot of roads. There's really hardly any people living out there. If we turn back on our structures. A few little spots out in here, but so basically what the fire's doing right now is we'll turn off glass here. New fire, new folder. All right, so here you got the glass fire. Turn off that. So Pickett's kind of taking out this whole basin here right now. So it started here at the end of this road, and it's burning out this drainage here that all burned 5 years ago. So this is a look kind of down towards Calistoga from the northeast, or from the northwest, and you can see the fire is kind of pushing up that drainage, and it's starting to kind of want to come over the top of that sub basin there. So these rocks we're looking at from that camera view are right up in here, and the fire is kind of pushing up hard right now towards the top of that that ridge. Let's see what that ridge is called. Bard Hill. Up at the top here we've got the state park. This area over here is called the Palisades, these big bluffs. So it seems likely the fire, right now they're focusing the air tankers on trying to box it in up here on this ridge system. Like we saw yesterday, when the fire's got a big head going, there's no amount of air power is going to stop the headward run of a fire that's in alignment in the middle of August when it's 97 degrees and dry. So they're working on kind of boxing it in here. The problem is just that it's likely to kind of get to the top of the hill and go over the other side. So as we've said, all this area burned in 2020, and there's also not a lot of kind of civilization, as it were, within this box that burned in glass. So we turn back on the glass fire here, and we see there's not really that many structures out in here. And the glass, there was a dozer line here that was put in during the Hennessy fire that was reopened during glass, and glass burned into that. And this whole part of the fire didn't need fighting because it had already been fought during the lightning bust in June or July of 2020. August. 2020 was August. August lightning fires. If you're wondering, it's bubbly water we're pounding around here. Anyway, fire's got some potential. It's burning in fine fuels, and that's what happens when we have a fire, and then it regrows. Is you get a lot of brush survives and sprouts back, and then you get a lot of grass. And so this fire can move really quickly because it's burning in grass on steep slopes, and you really see that on this imagery once we turn off our blue fire here. Is this it's running in fine fuels. So the good thing about fine fuels is that air tankers are really effective. The bad thing is that air tankers aren't effective on kind of slope-driven fires that are hauling ass, because you can't get in under the smoke to paint retardant. So from what I can hear I haven't looked at the aerial stuff yet. What am I trying to say? I haven't looked at the aircraft stuff yet, but it sounded like the initial strategy was to be kind of trying to paint this ridge with retardant on this flank. And looking at the cameras, it's not clear if the fire might just kind of do this. But the good news for now on this fire is that it's running away from where all the people live. So let's just look at kind of an animation here of the last hour. Okay, fire started about 3:20.
If 603 is, then I'll drop the tankers real quick. Left-hand over it. Okay, clear to target. Copy. Clear. 6 pump golf, clear to target. And 612 will take number 1. Copy, we'll fall behind.
This shot here gives you a little maybe better shot of kind of the dynamics of the smoke column when they get to it.
Orbiting for a while. Affirmative. So we're keep doing the same thing. We're going to be working on that left from the top down, rolling up to the
So what we can kind of see happening here in the last is real similar to what happened yesterday, where the atmosphere wasn't unstable enough yesterday for the Coyote Fire's column to push up and like get a big ice cap on top of it and like go up to 30,000 feet and start its own kind of whole weather system. You see that the smoke is going up like to maybe like 10,000 feet, and then it's kind of packing in, and so that tells you that you don't quite have the atmospheric dynamics for a pure plume-driven fire. And also, one of the factors that's kind of limiting the energy of this plume is that this fire's run right now is in fine fuels, or it's in areas that burned 5 years ago, and so they're kind of light sprouting brush, or kind of resprouts in the oaks. So if this was like the first time this was all burning in the last 100 years, it would be burning differently, but it's not. And so but there wasn't a lot of fire here between the 60s and 2020. This area burned in the Hanley fire in 64. And incidentally, Hanley is another interesting fire in that Hanley is real similar to the Tubbs in that it started over here and it ran all the way through Mark West Springs to Santa Rosa. So the 2017 Tubbs fire was kind of, people say it was in a lot of ways kind of a copy this, was a recreation of that 64 Hanley fire just 53 years later. So as we talked about on here a lot, is just past fires tell the story. They give you an idea of what's possible on a landscape. The fuels don't change. Vegetation grows back with similar types to what was there before, and the weather and topography are often the same. So you see that Hanley, you can kind of go through all of these historic fires and look for stories or hazards. So when they built all this Fountain Grove and everything here above Santa Rosa, like that was done kind of maybe in I don't know if I'd say in ignorance, but and I don't actually I can't speak very well to the history here, but I guess what I would say is if in history you have a fire like this that ran 10 miles in a short amount of time from the east to the west, if you're going to go build a new subdivision in the middle of that, it behooves you to kind of do some research and figure out, like, when did that happen? What were the weather conditions? How can I kind of maybe think about that in how I lay out my subdivision? Because when you look at this fire and then you throw on the Tubbs, it can be kind of uncanny. It's like Tubbs in white, Hanley in brown. And actually both these fires, both the Hanley and the Tubbs, started kind of in the bottom here, made their initial push, but also then went up the other way, the other direction. Anyway, that's Tubbs. Tubbs is infamous, of course, for having nuked out Coffey Park. Burnt right down into town. Alright, so that's your kind of fire history of Sonoma and Napa County. 2017 was a big year. We burnt a lot of ground here. But just in general, to talk about this landscape, let's just, if you look at Lake County and Sonoma County, since 2000, all these colored areas are places that have burned in Lake and Napa County, Lake Napa and Sonoma, LNU, Cal Fire Unit. And if you just keep turning the decades back on, like Lake County, Sonoma County, Napa County, they have as robust a fire history almost as the Klamath Mountains. Which is to say, there's just been a huge amount of fire in this landscape in the last century, in part because it's dry, it's hot, it gets windy, it has chamise, it has live oak, it has everything that a fire wants to chew on. So when you see a fire like this, Picket, this is business as usual in Lake Napa, and just another day, another day in fire season in Sonoma Lake Napa. But what we see around here is that a lot of these fires do become large in this box. If you look at Hanley, if you look at Glass, Hennessy, etc., because our options for kind of direct attack on fires here are pretty limited. It's tough ground for dozers. If you think about trying to run a bulldozer, the thing with slamming in dozer line during a fire is that you have to get all the way through. And so oftentimes, say you got this fire burning down in here, and we'll have a perimeter pretty soon because they're working on flying it. But say you start off with your dozer here at the end of this dozer line, and you push this ridge, and you're like keeping up with the fire, and then you get to this cliff band here, and you have to stop. And the fire's like, well, that's fine. Like, fire doesn't care a rip about the fact that you've got dozer line all the way there, because the fire's just like, oh, I'll go up here, and then tonight I'll come back down this way when the wind starts blowing down the slope. So dozer line, you got to make it all the way, or you got to get a hand crew in there and finish the parts that the dozer couldn't do. And a lot of this country, you run out of opportunities for dozer. There's trails. There's a bunch of trails. It looks like a really cool place to explore, but they call it the Palisades for a reason. You're not going to do anything with firefighting kind of in here except helicopters and aircraft. So it's wild. It's rough. It's some of the craziest country in California. You don't expect it to happen right there, like outside of all these beautiful flat, world-class vineyards. But that's one reason that Lake Napa has a lot of big fires. Is a lot of the places that aren't like developed as vineyards, etc., are steep, rugged, inaccessible ground covered with very flammable vegetation. Anyway, so that's Pickett for you. So down here is Calistoga. Right now, Calistoga is not threatened by this fire. Fire's running up the hill. Tonight, when the winds change, there may be portions of the fire that move downhill. But what we're good at on fires like this is kind of holding on to the heel. And so you saw that yesterday on the Coyote. The heel is like one of the only places that you can really engage. Just trying to see if we get a kind of better camera view of it. So many cameras. Man, it is cooking. So anyway, this is where we were just drawing that dozer line and showing how you wouldn't be able to get a line in there. The other thing with fires here is just you don't have time to throw a dozer line in there. You're not going to like drive a dozer down this ridge into the fire ahead of it. And so this next basin's in play now, but potentially they're gonna kind of focus the efforts that they can on the heel of the fire. So I have really no idea what the fire looks like right now, other than it started here and it's running this way. But you can see from Glass there's like a lot of dozer line that was prepped in the past, and that makes it easier to get in there and just kind of push the same lines again. A lot of the local dozer operators that do initial attack in this country, like it might be the same guy who drove the dozer up this line 5 years ago that's getting called today to go to that same spot. So a lot of good local knowledge. And also one thing that the dozer operators have started to do is they have iPads in their dozer. They have iPads in the dozer with the old maps, the kind of recent dozer lines, so they can see like, oh, I can see I got old dozer line pushing here. So I see all the comments over here. I'm running solo. My wife usually does the moderation. She's got stuff she's doing right now, so I can't really. It's hard for me to drive the computer and look at comments, but I'll take a little break here and look. Yeah, someone just mentioned Coyote. Coyote, as far as we can tell, is kind of done. I know yesterday I was drawing lines on the map and saying this thing could be 30,000 acres. Let me talk a little bit about. I've kind of like when I do kind of miss a forecast like that, I like to look at. I spent some time last night, like, why didn't this fire blow up? And there's this great website. All right, so just to take a little pause here, tactical pause. I'm waiting on an infrared perimeter to drop from this fire to actually see what's happening, and in the meantime, I don't have much more than you can see on the cameras. I'll post up a link here to the cameras, and you can check them out yourself. But I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the fire science and show you something we've done on the site here recently. All right, so we've got a video on our YouTube that is how to predict fire season. And damn you, YouTube. All right, predicting. All right, well, we got a video that I put out maybe in June or July if you search on our site, and I encourage you all to kind of check out the Lookout site anyway. We've kind of been making a lot of videos, it turns out. I made a video here that was about how to predict fire season, and no, I can't find it, but what it does is it runs you through a lot of the intel tools that I use to predict when we're going to have fires. When's the season going to start? And looking back, like, we have been busy. Can't find it now, but anyway, you have to take my word for it. I'll find a link to it. But there's these great tools. When I do find a video, and you can check it out, is about predicting fire season. We've got what's called the GACs, which are the Geographic Area Coordination Centers, and we talk about this in our video. And they are kind of the intel centers for the fire services, and there's one in every region of the country. And they have all these great scientific tools for explaining fuels dryness, fire hazard, etc. And so you can get in here, and so we say, like, if we look at the kind of Bay Marine, mid-coast to Mendocino. This is a chart of fire hazard right now. And when we look at the blue line, that's this year. The red line is kind of maximum ever. And gray, or since 2000, and gray line is the average, right? And so we're like actually a little below average on fuel dryness right now. This fire's ripping in the grass, but the brush maybe not as much as it could. So we often get our big fires when we're above, say, the 97th percentile fuel dryness. So this line here is 97th percentile, and you see that, okay, like, of the last 20 years, there's only, a couple days for any given day here of the, every point on this is a day of the year. There's only a couple days, say 6 days out of the last 20 would be that 97th percentile, is that right? No. One day would be 50th percentile, right? So these are the hottest, driest days, fuels-wise, of the last 20 years. And so it's helpful to look at these charts and see where we're at, because we get our big fires usually when we're kind of in the 90th to 97th percentile. So right now we're kind of pretty low. We're like around 80th percentile, but like with this dry weather, we're supposed to come up into the dry conditions. But when you look at the conditions in the Northern Sierra and the Sac Valley foothills, we're kind of below average. And so that's one reason that yesterday the Coyote fire didn't just go nuclear, even though it had a ton of fuel, inaccessible, and it was a hot day, is that the overall moisture of the vegetation, and living and dead, really affects how well fires burn. And so even though it could be a hot day like today, but we've had a cool summer. And so that's why this blue line is trending way below the maximum and kind of up and down above average. Right, so right now we're actually below average dryness for August, which just means that the fires don't have the potential to burn as explosively. So let's just jump in and see if we got a perimeter yet for this fire. Yes. When was that shot? That was shot a while ago. 354. So looks like, and this I think was probably drawn by the National Guard from a satellite. So not as accurate as what we're going to get when they actually fly over it again. But that shows you where it started, and then you can see that, bam, it's just gone straight up this hill here with the topography. And I went ahead and subscribed to Flight Radar last night because I'm tired of timing out and then having it look like I'm a cheapskate that isn't gonna pay for the software. All right, so we got a S2 coming in. We got a spotter plane flying around circles. We got a big plane, a Cal Fire C-130, and they're circling around trying to figure out what to do. This plane carries a lot more retardant than the S2s. S2s are more maneuverable. So let's see what this guy's gonna do. All right, Steinberg says, OS, Intel 12's headed to the fire. Okay, well, while we're waiting to see what this person's gonna do with their drop, can check. Here's a different plane that came over and dropped and then left. So you can see they came and they circled the fire, and then they swept wide and they came back and they dropped where? Like up here on this ridge. Looks like they're maybe prepping this ridge here. Like this guy came in, dropped, bugged out. It's also an S2. Previous person, looks like the same thing, like they dropped on the toe of this ridge here. So that ridge, it's got grass on half of it. Now we're just kind of sleuthing. I think they might be dropping over here. Like, because the fire's already crossed this ridge, it looks like maybe they're trying to build a retardant line along the bottom of this ridge. So it's some pretty tricky flying for these guys. Like, they have a differential here of, like, this plane right now is at 3,000 feet. Where they're going to be dropping is down closer to 500 feet. So they have to kind of figure out how to get their plane in position to drop across this and then fly out there without hitting a mountain, which is might be why the C-130 is still circling. Is the S2 pilots are a lot more aerobatic, you know. So if they're kind of trying to come in here and drop along this ridge, then they have to figure out how to get out of there without crashing into the mountain. And that's why the bigger planes like the C-130s or the DC-10s, the bigger, heavier tankers often have a lead plane. This lead plane's a little more nimble, small plane with some sort of rodeo cowboy for a pilot, and they figure out how they lead them in. They get them. That frees up the pilot. If the pilot can follow another plane in, it frees up the pilot to spend more energy thinking about their exit and lots of other things. But yeah, you know, there's a lot going on in those planes when they're dropping, you know, and the big planes especially. You know, the co-pilot is basically the pilot's flying the drop, and the co-pilot is making sure that the airplane is ready to go to full power and pull out and the exit. So it's almost like sometimes you got two pilots, one flying the drop and one flying the exit, because someone needs to keep an eye on all the gauges and the engine temperature and everything to make sure that everything's going right. Because the pilots, almost got their head out the window, flying with one hand, trying to, hit the fire. One of my buddies, guy who used to work with me, mapping fires, his dad was a air tech out of Chester for our whole childhood, and he was forever taking his kids out on these wild goose chase weekend trips to try to find cool stuff he'd seen from the plane way out in Nevada or something on the job. But he got hired by NASA after he retired to do a cockpit work analysis, and basically all of us techies are always pushing, saying like, oh, the pilots need real-time flight tracking. We want a system where the air tech can draw the drop on an iPad, and the pilots have been resistant to that because they're like, well, what's wrong with what we're doing right now? We're already busy. We don't want more tasks. We don't have time to look at a computer. And so my buddy's dad got pulled in by NASA to do this analysis, and they videotaped everything that went on in the cockpit in these heavy tankers. And these were big. This was 30 years ago. They were still flying a lot of the crazy old World War II bombers. And so they went through and they videoed every minute of these guys' work, and then they logged it all, and they basically found that, what the pilots were saying is like, there's not time for them to be touching a screen and looking at a screen and using a screen to send an email to the air attack of where the drop's going to be. It's like, no, like we're flying by wire. No, we're going to it's working. And so, with all this technology we got, there's night vision goggle helicopter pilots and some advances, but a lot of the kind of crazy cowboy stuff that's happening has been happening the same way for a long time. It's not laser guided. It's seat of your pants dropping mud out of a really old airplane at low level over a fire in the summertime. It's just crazy. Okay, fire's headed north. So let's go back and look at the mountaintop views. Guess we could turn back on the scanner if we want to. Okay, so let's do it now. Right, so the fire's reached the top of the mountain. Now it's going to start doing its thing on the other side of the mountain. So what's that look like for, let's just draw kind of a guesstimation of what's happening here. It looks like, so here we've got Calistoga at the bottom, got Highway 29 over here. So it looks to me like the fire's kind of doing this. I'm just guessing on the other side because I can't really see what's happening over there. And I got this dang disappearing ink. So Calistoga's out here. Right now the fire's movement's all upslope. So in these kind of light fuels, the fire's going to sorry, I totally forget to draw my map for you guys. All right. I need a chair buzzer that you guys can just hit a button and shock me when I'm just showing me talking, and because like I said, I've got notes on all my monitors that say show the map, but it doesn't matter. I get in the mode here. All right. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen, people? The fire right now is slope driven, and so once it comes down onto the backside of this mountain here, it's gonna lose a lot of its kind of mojo, but there's nowhere to fight it, right? In this country, there's no real access, and so what we see a lot on fires like this is, that's why this last fire got held on this road system, because this is the first place you got access to on the backside here. So we got Etna Springs, Pope Valley. So the fire's well established, and it's going to kind of get established over here in the headwaters of this creek. We'll turn on this, figure out what this creek is. Swartz Canyon. Okay. Steinberg, are you listening to the radio? I was putting in some place marks here for us to, so when we turn the space map off, we can see what we're doing. Rattlesnake Ridge here. So what I'm doing right now is just adding some names, because all this storytelling is kind of about, and one thing we try to do here with the Lookout is develop a common language of place, right? Like when we show up on a fire, we have to quickly kind of establish a language of place. We have to figure out what things are called, where people are going to go. And so as a person who was making maps on fires, we'd always be listening to the radio. And we'd hear someone say, oh, I'm up on Rattlesnake Ridge. And so that's like, okay, well, let's make sure Rattlesnake Ridge is on tomorrow's map, because that's obviously something important. And sometimes it's like someone's like, oh, I'm at the drop point there with the old shot up bucket. And then you want to try to find and put the shot up bucket on the map, because that's that's part of the lingo of the place. They're like, oh, I'm at the old Roni place. It's like, well, is that on the map? Let's make sure it's on the map. So we try to do the same thing here, especially if we're on a fire we're going to talk about for several days. It's like, okay, let's build a little bit of common kind of understanding of this geography, because this channel is all about geography and how land affects where fires go, everything else. So we got our fire down here. It's run this draw. If you're just joining us, we're looking at the Pickett Fire, Calistoga, California, Napa Valley. Over here we got Lake Berryessa, got Clear Lake, got Sacramento off here, and so, yep, expensive real estate. Surrounded by crazy interior California desert, basically. I think you don't think of Napa Valley being a desert really, but Lake County's a desert county. It's a dry place. So cruising up here through Napa Valley, all these black lines are dozer lines from the class fire. So we get up here to Calistoga, and this valley keeps going all the way up Highway 128, but here, before we go up over and top Highway 29, we got the Picket Fire. It's burning out here. So what's the name of the state park up here? Gotta ask Google. Robert Louis Stevenson. Oh, here's the power circles of Mount St. Helena. Tourist attraction. Hope that they're made out of rocks, so they probably won't burn, right? Just want a map. I don't want the train, just want the map. So this Robert Louis Stevenson State Park kind of extends over towards these Palisades we're looking at here. Out into here. Squirrel. It's weird people refuse to admit arson is a major reason for all these fires. Well, you gotta look at statistics. It's not. Arson is not statistically I mean, yes, arson in Lake County is a way of life for some people, but when we look at the causes of fires, like they're overwhelmingly human-caused fires are overwhelmingly not arson, right? And so there's this narrative that and I'm not accusing you, Squirrel, of pushing this narrative, but there's this narrative that these fires are set for a reason. They're set to clear land for the high-speed rail. They're set to force all the people in the country to move to town because of Agenda 21. They're set. It's like these are all conspiracy theories that that we don't entertain on the channel. Is that there's like some like big conspiracy to like burn everyone out so the Rothschild family can consolidate their power over whatever, you know, like. So when I see people in the chat saying it's arson, it's homeless people, it's whatever, you know, it's like, who knows, man? It's 100 degrees, and like maybe some person out here is actually like out mowing because they're worried about fire hazard and they didn't get the memo that you're not supposed to mow in the afternoon. Like humans cause fires. Maybe it's some kids out here smoking a bowl, and one of the kids, it's the first time he smoked pot and he coughed. Smoked too much, coughed. Little flaming bud landed in the grass, and then they ran away because they're idiots, right? Maybe their joint's too short and they burnt their fingers. Like, yeah, there's people do stupid shit every day, and when it's 105 degrees out, people still do stupid shit, and yeah, there you go. But whatever. Maybe it is arson. I don't know, but I'm not going to say it is until someone else the people who investigate this stuff are really freaking smart. So we usually figure out what happened, and usually it's something really stupid, you know. Humans start fires. When you look at like where fires start, they start where humans go. Long roads, long railroads, long power lines, long highways. We do lots of stuff in our lives that creates friction. Friction starts fires. Squirrel, there are tons of them. It's people who get off on it, not a conspiracy. What are you saying, Squirrel? Like, there are a lot of arsons in Lake County, but doesn't mean this one is. Just saying. But yeah, they stay busy. Lake Napa, they're prevention people. They stay busy, and they got all kinds of great secret squirrel tools. They catch people. They're good at it. I'm glad. Arson is freaking lame, and I'm a pyro. I love fire, and I love prescribed burning and everything. But yeah, arson's lame. Do I think there's any chance it crosses Highway 29? Where's 128? I don't think there's any chance it's going to go this. I really don't think it's any chance it's going to go across, but you know, because we don't have a real strong east wind kind of forecast right now, so I don't think it's going to go there. It's definitely not out of the question that it's going to cross 29. Sorry. Back to the map. Threats to Middletown. I don't think it's a threat to Middletown right now, just because it's going to run out of slope here. And let's look at our winds. Right now, I do not think it's a threat to Middletown. Let's just kind of look at the geography here real quick. We got Middletown out here. Middletown's out in a kind of in a big flat. See that all this dozer line got pushed during glass fire as contingency. But yeah, Middletown, you know, the reason that Middletown burned during the Valley Fire was it's really windy, and there's these extraordinarily kind of strong northwest winds. Let's just pull up the Valley Fire here real quick. Yeah, so Middletown, you know, had its own tragic fire here in 2015. Let's see if we got it in our major fires. Here's the Valley Fire. Valley Fire started up here on Cobb Mountain, and it had a strong, so we're looking kind of southeast, and the Valley Fire had a real strong northwest wind that pushed it down to the southeast, and really a lot of carnage. Middletown, you know, it really wiped out a lot of Middletown. This particular fire, it's got a long ways to go and a lot of broken topography, and we don't have kind of, our prevailing flow here is more westerly. So if we look at kind of our fire history, I'm not sure if it really shows well on the fire history, but let's just look at our wind forecast for a minute. All right, so this is the Calistoga forecast. So our winds are basically coming out of the southwest in Calistoga, so that's typical. It comes up the valley. Wouldn't say the southwest. No, the winds are coming kind of off the ocean. Our prevailing wind off the ocean is southwest. So we got kind of basically prevailing winds on this fire. The forecast for Calistoga is southwesterly for the whole next week. And our peak winds are going to be in the late afternoon, like right about from now 5 to 6 every day. Gusts of 9, 10, max gusts of like low teens. So, you know, that bodes well for Middletown, because if we're worried about southwest winds, let's draw some southwest arrows on here. This is kind of the forecast winds for the next week. And we got Middletown up here. So, and a fire down here. So, it's good news for, I'd say, like, and our fire's kind of down here right now. So I'd say, yeah, Middletown, not so much a threat. It'll be interesting to see what happens, like, once the fire gets over the mountain here, like, what its spread will be out here towards Hope Valley, Etna Springs. But as far as kind of the area it's burning towards is kind of like some of the least populated areas in, you know, if you look at how many structures are in this area, it really is burning in this kind of, like this area out here is, I mean, there's Angwin and stuff, but you've got a pretty large chunk of ground out here where the fire can kind of do its thing and not impact. No comfort to you if you live out here, of course, but you know, it's not like you've got a fire out here right now that's like pushing into Middletown and Hidden Valley Lake where you've got thousands of homes. So yes, there's a lot of scattered structures out here. One thing I will say about a lot of the people that live out in this country is they've experienced a lot of fire between 2020 and everything else, and people have been making a lot of efforts to who survived those fires to kind of take care of their mowing their grass, etc. So I think kind of an initial, I'd say the fire is somewhat of a threat to Angwin. Probably not today. But like when you look at the glass fire, that's Hamley, sorry. Got glass in here. So many fires, oh my god. Alright, here's the glass fire. Sorry, I gotta turn off. It does get kind of unmanageable. If you look at the glass fire, that is the kind of accessible control box for similar big fire in this country. 2020, it may have been drier. It was later in the season. I'm not saying that this fire is going to burn out to the glass box, but I am saying that this glass box, the reason that those dozer lines, like when we have a big fire, like they push dozers everywhere they can. And when you don't see a lot of dozer line in a chunk of real estate, usually that's because when you zoom in, you find that it like looks like this. Right? This is not dozer country. This is not like really anything country, right? Like this is tough. As far you're not going to easily get hand crews in there. So I would say it's not unreasonable that this fire will burn out to the box of glass, at least in like this middle section. And it's definitely not unreasonable that it could burn this whole box. But that said, Cal Fire is formidable. And we saw what they did yesterday in heavy timber. Like they just completely knocked that fire off the map. So this area's got a lot of fine fuels. The biggest challenge for them out here is trying to figure out a cohesive strategy. Like, okay, we have this incredible air force to bring to bear on this fire. Where do you direct that firepower? Now, you don't want to waste those resources. Okay, another thing just to mention at this juncture, should Pope Valley evacuate? Pope Valley's out here. There's quite a bit of country between the fire and the Pope Valley, but you should do what people tell you to do. You know, what I like to say is, like, if you can see a giant smoke column from your house, it's a good sign that you should be on your toes. And if you can smell the smoke strongly, you know, if the smoke is blowing towards you, that usually tells you also that you're in a bad spot. I mean, what we're watching here is like what we were watching yesterday with the development of this column smoking itself out in some ways. So you see kind of between the fire and Angwin right now is huge smoke shadow. Really wild dynamics in the plume here. Dang. So this whole area is getting shaded out. That helps moderate the fire behavior under that big cap of smoke. Yeah, so someone's saying the smoke's starting to drift towards Hidden Valley Lake. Yeah, what we're seeing is like this kind of massive. It's what we saw yesterday. You know what you've got that makes it hard to kind of describe all this stuff is you've got battling. You've got surface winds, like terrain-driven winds, where the winds are blowing up the slope in the afternoon, and then you've got multiple winds doing different things in different layers of the atmosphere. And so just because the smoke's all laying out, you know, to the north at the upper level doesn't mean that there's a north wind affecting the fire necessarily. So here you can see our column and the smoke kind of pushing out towards the north. But you can also see like that you got these kind of real dominant kind of southwest dynamics to this weather here. You know, so you've got things are happening on multiple scales. You've got a high pressure system here with the air moving kind of clockwise around it. You got a low up here with the air moving counterclockwise, and in between you've got this kind of zone of high pressure that's clear. But all those things end out affecting what the smoke's doing, and that oftentimes is totally independent of what's happening on the ground. And I was listening to a forecast today talking about how the hurricane up here is now It's going to move up off the coast. It's going to go up into the Arctic, and it's going to displace a bunch of air, cold air there, and that cold air is going to push down into here. It's like, I have no idea how people figure this stuff out. Like I've said many times, I'm not a meteorologist. So let's go back to our smoke porn here. Alright, so we've been getting some weird stuff happening here with like people saying, I don't know what, can't do anything since my dad's still at work, I don't know what to do. It's pretty hard for us to handle like weird stuff in the chat where like hard for us to tell if it's like a weird like laughing clown or something. Yesterday someone was pretending they were a sheriff. We don't have a whole lot to offer people in the chat, but you can listen to what we're saying and try to make sense of it, and we'll try to tell you what's happening. Whereas if you're in Calistoga, you're fine right now. If you're in Middletown, you're fine right now. If you're in Angwin, the fire might be there in the next day or two, and you should think about this is a good time to put your go bag together, make sure you know where all your stuff is, find your pets. It's fire season. This is like peak fire season. Event like this is a good time just to check all your stuff and make sure that you're not gonna have to run out in a hurry and forget. But in right now, St. Helena, Calistoga, the whole Valley Bottom, Middletown, Hidden Valley Lake, pay attention, but don't panic. We're not in a crazy kind of like campfire, continental scale windstorm kind of catastrophe mode. We're in kind of slope driven, average hot fire season, like interesting fire. But we're not going into like burning down paradise. Watch duty will tell you, your evacuation zones will tell you, your sheriff's updates will tell you. That's not our job here to tell you when you should go. We're going to try to give you an idea of what's relatively the threat. Where's the big picture? Just to be straightforward with that. See if we got a perimeter yet. How many acres will burn? A meatologist? I am a meatologist. Alright, let's just give a wag at. Someone says how many acres. We can kind of guess at what we think it is right now. We could try to scoop watch duty and get you in acres before they do. Break out our ruler. Let's see. 1,000 acres. I'm guessing it's under 1,000 acres, but not for long. What map is this? This is Google Earth. Google Earth Pro. Best map ever. They haven't really updated the software for like 20 years, but it's pretty dope. I make my own layers for it, so all these layers off on the side that I'm turning on and off and stuff, these are all stuff that I've either tracked down or made myself because I'm a mapping expert. So yeah, all the data I use is open, like public. I don't really have any like backdoor hacks or anything. It's all stuff that you just kind of need to know where to look. And I've been doing this stuff for a long time, so I've kind of figured out where the stuff is and where to look and what to ask for. If you're interested in learning more about mapping, this is called the technology behind mapping is called GIS, and you can take classes on GIS. Intel 12 is doing some interesting circles. So what Intel 12 is doing is they orbit. They hang out and they fly around kind of at a distance, and they're recording video, and they're kind of live streaming it, and then the where'd they go? Interesting. I wonder if they wonder why they're way out there. Sometimes they want to wait until the ops people have a minute to be able to look at their live stream. But yeah, they're all over the place. You know what it might be is they might be having problems with their sensor package, and so they're flying around out of the way while they try to troubleshoot their technology. But basically what this plane, Intel 12, is doing is it's got this military grade mapping software and a gimbal on the bottom of it, and it shoots a range-finding laser at the ground, and it has this crosshairs, and then they can float the crosshair around the edge of the fire and stream points to make the polygon, the mapping. But they also orbit, and they send down a live stream that firefighter, like operations people, can look at on their phone or on a computer, and you see this black and white infrared image of the fire. So it's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing tools they've got. One thing I don't like about it is like that target that's in the middle, and all the language on the screen is like it's all about killing people, right? It's like it's all adapted from like drone software. You're like, oh, there's the target, and we're gonna blow up that house down there. Like it's pretty weird, in my opinion. Like, and just the tone of it, the target's locked. We got the, you know, like you look at it and you're like, wow, this you can just take this system and throw it in another platform and kill people all day. So that's I guess that's our peace dividend. But it's pretty cool stuff for people knowing what's going on with fires, and for us to be able to tell our stories. You know? What do I think about smoke column collapse? It is fire season. Well, let's go back and look at the column while we wait for these guys to hopefully fix their stuff. This, you know, this has a big pile of smoke on it, but it's not necessarily what we would call a column. I know that's kind of a little confusing, but we're gonna bail out here on Coyote and use that camera for something else. Get a little longer view here from Barnum. All right, so looking at this pile of smoke, this is just a big cloud of smoke. It's not necessarily what we'd call a column right now, where a column is kind of like your mushroom cloud, where it's got this big kind of gnarly shaft going up and then ice cap cloud on the top. And so what happens, one reason that columns collapse is, say this is, you know, your big gnarly let's use a different color. Say this is like your big mushroom cloud column here. What's happening here is this is being sustained aloft by all the hot air rising up from the fire. But also what's happening often is, like in timber, you're burning a lot of green vegetation that's got moisture in it, and so there's a huge amount of weight of moisture being suspended up there. So, you know, you got like thousands of pounds of water vapor, millions of pounds of water vapor up here in the column that's being held aloft by the updrafts of the heat coming off the fire. And so suddenly, if your fire gets to the top of the mountain and it runs out of fuel, suddenly you lose all this updraft, and then you've got millions of pounds of water sitting up here in the sky, and then that all comes crashing down. And so that's what we call a column collapse, and it's fairly rare in a lot of ways to have a column collapse, but when it does, that all that weight of, and then you think of all the like carbon and everything that's held up here, like all that smoke and all like the burnt material, like all the carbon, ash, charcoal, everything else, plus the weight of the water. Once you no longer have the crazy amount of lift from all that heat from the fire going up the hill, that comes crashing down. And when that happens, you can have really incredibly crazy stuff happen. You can have 30-inch trees snapped off halfway up. You can have fire that like blows all over the landscape. And so column collapse is really gnarly, but oftentimes, if you look up kind of like pyrocumulus cloud, they're usually a little kind of more dramatic than what we're seeing. Like this is kind of classic, like the creek fire, right? Like when they're going up like 30,000 feet, like that's more what we're talking about with a column collapse. Is like this is how you could literally have millions of pounds of material suspended. So what we have right now is a smoke column, but it's not a pyrocumulus or pyrocumulonimbus. One of the things that I look for in kind of calling a column out is this ice cap. And so that's when all that moisture from all this burning vegetation gets up into the kind of the stratosphere, it freezes and it forms, we call it an ice cap. So what we have right now, it's not really a column. It is a column, but it's not a pyrocumulus. It's just a big header of smoke, right? So don't worry as much there about the column collapsing, just because we're not yet at that kind of taking it to the next level of like badass column. This is just, yeah, we got a big column on us, but it's not a pyrocumulonimbus. And you can see that when you look on like the weather satellites. Like we see the smoke here, but like you start to see, like when we zoom in on these, sometimes you'll start to see like there's a little bit of a header forming. There's a little bit of like white ice capping happening on that, but just this little dot of it. We see our column forming here, and you can really see, like yesterday, you can really see that the shadow kind of forming on that thing. Sorry, I can't zoom in farther. This is the infrared. It'll take a minute to load up here. So back to our cameras. It's interesting to see how the smoke's now starting to lay back a little more towards the west. What's our map in flight doing? All right, so our mapping flight's back in the mix. Flying over a fire, hopefully we get something from them. It's interesting how reliant we've become just in a couple years on having daytime intel. In the past, we get a night IR flight. If we're lucky during the day, the ops chief and maybe a fire behavior analyst would go fly the fire in a helicopter, and we get kind of a loose mapping of where the helicopter had gone. But like this whole deal of having like super crisp intel like several times a day it's really a new thing. Check something here. All right. Intel reports the fire is at 1,200 acres. Smoke conditions are restricting the ability to get an accurate perimeter at this time. All right, so we were close with our 1,000-acre guess. All right, so we're going to keep working. So they say 1,000 acres, 1,200 acres. So we're just going to kind of work on that assumption of what we laid out here. We'll make a polygon based on kind of our guess, because it seems like that's somewhat close. All right, we're a little generous there. All right, so we'll call that. Sorry, I'll get the map up here in a second. Okay, there we go. So yeah, IR flight, they can't map it accurately, but they say about 1,200 acres. So that's basically the whole watershed. That what we just drew here is about 1,100 acres. So that's basically what the fire's got to work with right now. It's very likely going to spill over the top here in several directions. As we said before, the smoke really limits the ability of the air attack, right? So right now what they can work with is this side that isn't smoked out, but they can't really work under the column. So it's kind of not super unlikely that the fire is going to spill over the ridge here. Like that, all over the place. Steinberg sent me a text. So Michael Steinberg's on here, NorCal Fire, storm chasing. We collaborate a lot, and dang, what's happening? And but he screenshotted. He's a good heckler, like most geographers should be. So he sent me one of my crazy screen drawings last night, and I appreciate it. Feel free. But yeah, so. Yesterday I started drawing all these diagrams on the screen, and then the fire just got put out, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be 30,000 acres. So take this all with a grain of salt. I'm not out there. I'm in this little shack in the backyard, like with a little window air conditioner, looking at maps on my computer. I have no idea what's going on. So this is just this is entertainment, hopefully, and some learning, storytelling. I have no idea what's going to happen really, but my educated guess would be that it's not out of the question that the fire is going to spill out of here, because there's a lot of smoke out here, and I don't know if the tankers can work here. It's not out of the question that they'll be able to kind of hold it up and use retardant and push this old dozer line and maybe connect the dots through here. I have no idea. I have no idea what the fire's going to do out in here. I'd say it's not out of the question it'll get out to here, but like I said, I got zero intel from people on the ground who know what's going on. Just me making up stuff in my shack. But educated guesses are better than nothing, I guess. And so yeah, let's figure out what this drainage is here, and then maybe I'll tell some more stories. I got a couple funny Calistoga stories that we can tell while we're waiting for some revelations to occur. All right, so this is Dutch Henry Canyon. I got a funny story about Calistoga, and it may have happened right here. Kind of, it's somewhere right over here, some fancy resort, and so I showed up there, and LA's burning up. Okay, well, I'm gonna tell a story first, because we're just hanging out here, and y'all are here for entertainment, right? So I think it was somewhere right around here, Dutch Henry Canyon, up here, and yeah, this looks right. I don't know. There's some really fancy pants resorts, of course, because it's Napa Valley, and I went down here with my little baby and my 4-year-old or something, and I was driving this beat up minivan because we were not wealthy, and but we had an opportunity to come down here to meet up with my wife's old college friend who was now married to this gangster. And so this guy flew up from LA in their private jet, and some other guys, some like Lebanese investment banker, and this other guy flew in on their jets, and then they all flew together to Napa, and then they showed up in some fancy cars, and we showed up in our minivan, and we hung out and partied with these guys. And it turned out that the one of the guys had made billions or millions of dollars processing like credit card payments for nefarious activities in Eastern Europe, and the other guy was the vice president of merchant fraud detection for MasterCard. So he was being wined and dined by the gangster money launderer guy, and we were just randomly like hanging out with our kids with some of my wife's old friends. Anyway, those people all got in trouble since then, and the gangster guy died, so I can tell that story. But yeah, later I Googled it and I found out that like it was kind of a big scandal because the guy who was supposed to be like helping MasterCard not get scammed was like being wined and dined by a dude who was like a really big scammer. So anyway, and then my kid fell in the swimming pool, and luckily I wasn't partying, and I noticed because he was 2 and he sank. Anyway, weird. Life is crazy. And hope no one wants to take me out for telling a story like that. Anyway, but everyone there had the same car. That's when I realized that like if you're really rich, like if you're a super rich person, like you're either going to buy the like super top of the line Mercedes or you're going to buy the super top of the line BMW, but like that's it. So like I thought it was like a fleet or something that this resort provided like super fancy black Mercedeses to their guests or something, but it was just all that the most wealthy people all drive the same car because it's the best Mercedes you can buy, and what else are you going to drive? So it was weird, but my minivan stood out in the parking lot among all those like super expensive Mercedes. Okay. Napa. Those guys drink good wine. That's what I learned was like, okay, if you're super rich, you can drink really, really good wine. And anyway, that's your fire story. Okay. Steinberg sent me a text and trying to get me back on track. Good luck with that, brother. Okay, it's Zinfandel camera. Here we go. Okay, so as we were talking about, like our red arrows that we drew slopping over the ridge into Dutch Baby Canyon, they're coming to life, which is just proof that we actually are controlling the weather from the lookout with our arrows. So yeah, so what we're looking at there on that camera is the fire kind of coming down into Dutch Henry Canyon. Auberge. That was it. That's where we stayed, Auberge. All right. Well, it was pretty fancy, but they didn't have a fence around their spa, and my baby fell in it. So I'm glad I was paying attention. It's one of those moments where you're like, man, no slack. You're not allowed to let your guard down for a minute when you got a 2-year-old. Auberge. So where's Auberge here? Should add to our map. Can't be right. Farther away. Yeah, I mean, it's more like it. All right. And the Lomel Road. Okay. Got it. What's going on here? Did these places get burnt in the last fire or what? Oh man, people still talking about arson over here? All right. Well, here's something I got to say about arson is that we tend to try to like reduce ignition sources on the landscape. So like PG&E turning off the power is an example of trying to reduce ignitions during critical periods. Fire prevention, education, teaching people not to mow the grass when it's dry. Like those are all aspects of fire prevention. And the problem with the problem with the entire kind of practice of trying to eliminate ignitions is just that it's really difficult to do that because you have people operating chainsaws, tractors, weed eaters, cars, motorcycles. We have power lines. We have railroads. We have all these things that start fires. We have like old Coke bottles laying out that focus the sun. We have kids playing with matches. We have crazy people. We have homeless camps where people are using fire to cook their food. Like, it's really, 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 really difficult to... We're not going to extirpate ignition sources from the landscapes. And so we really have to plan on fires happening and assume they're going to happen because this is a place that burns often. The fuels, the topography, the weather, the access, all mean you're going to have a fire. So we can do what we can to reduce ignitions, but we're still going to have fires. We've been trying to reduce ignitions for 100 years. We still have fires all over the map. And so oftentimes I'm less interested in how our fire started than what it's going to do and then what we can do to make that less destructive to the things we care about. So cutting your brush, because we're not going to solve the problem by getting rid of ignitions altogether. So we should invest instead on assuming a fire is going to happen and then cutting brush and building houses out of materials that won't burn. Like if we come in here, look at this place here. This place went through the glass fire. And did it survive? Maybe, but look at that. It's surrounded with green grass. It's surrounded with oaks. Looks pretty defendable, right? Like people who've been living here for a while now have gotten the memo and are doing a lot of work to make their places more defendable. You got pavement all the way around this house. And that's the way you have to live. The places, what people are learning is that if you don't do that work, your house is going to burn down or you're not going to be able to get insurance. And it's, we've been talking about that a lot on here. It's a conflict because our picture of, like just if you pull up the Google and you say Napa Vineyard and just look at what it looks like, oftentimes you're going to find something that isn't fire safe. Of course, castles are. But like, a beautiful vineyard covered with plants that are half full of dead material, like that's a liability, and so a lot of what we need to do is kind of reinvent what we consider to be kind of classic California architecture, because a lot of what we consider to be like this beautiful California experience with exposed wood and planters right up against the house surrounded with this wildland vegetation and a huge view is like designed to burn your house down. Hardy board's a good solution. Concrete doesn't burn. Steel panels, like it's difficult because wood is cheap. That's why we build subdivisions out of it, and we do have this aesthetic of like beautiful old redwood, and vegetation right up against the house, and like landscaping in California is really part of the aesthetic. A place like this, like, yeah, you're not going to burn down your stone castle, but this kind of seamlessness between nature and architecture is one of the problems. One of the reasons things burn down is because these plants get full of old dead material, and there's all these beautiful things that we love doing with wood. You don't think of a winery really and not think of redwood. But what we're learning is that these little details, there's a lot of little details in kind of Sunset Magazine vision of how things should look that make your house likely to burn down. It's like this outdoor living issue. It's like plants growing right up against wood siding. And especially if you go back, before, now it's at least on their radar. But if you and don't worry, we'll get back to the fire. We're just kind of taking a little break, letting the fire do its thing. There's just a lot of things about what we've traditionally seen as being the California way. That actually, like, embers are going to catch your wood on fire and they're going to like burn down your beautiful kitchen, so all right, yeah, houses made in shipping containers. I think earth chips, like someone just said, earth chips, and I totally agree. Like digging in hobbit holes, like it's geothermal, like it's easier to dig your house into the hill. If you're already going to excavate to build a house, you already got the machine there, like dig in. Get metal shutters that you can cover your windows with. You can build beautiful homes. Like if you look at Europe and look at like why they build with stone and everything else, it's because people were using fire to like burn out their enemies. 800 years ago. They learned there in the Mediterranean, in Spain and France and Portugal and all these other places that you couldn't build a house out of wood; it would burn down. It was weapons of war, but it's also just, fires happen. And so they've learned hundreds of years ago that you shouldn't build houses out of wood in fire-prone landscapes. All right, so back to the fire. Let's see where our mapping plane is. Mapping plane's flying around circles again. I think maybe they're waiting for the smoke to clear or something, but just gonna look and see what else is going on in California right now. We got a fire in Camp Pendleton. And what are people saying about this fire? Looks like it's getting some legs. Don't worry, I'll go back to here. Alright, not a lot of intel coming from my normal intel page. Well, we don't have a lot to, without more flights, we don't have a lot to tell you about. But what I want to tell you about while we're having this conversation about home hardening and everything, it's really been on our radar. We've got a series, and some of you probably already checked it out, but we're really proud of it, and I just want to play the trailer for it because we've been putting a ton of energy into it, and it's out, and we're putting a new episode out tomorrow at noon. So I'm going to play it here, and I'll narrate a little bit.
3,500.
This
Number 3 behind 911.
features
Air attack
footage from our own Michael
4,500.
Steinberg,
Multiple copters.
aka
500
NorCal Storm
below.
Chaser on here.
Hazard
The LA fires
fire.
were shocking,
We're going to be working on the
and it's easy to feel powerless. But the situation is not
Number
hopeless.
3 cop. Also,
I gotta turn off gotta turn off the scanner here.
Saw those drops.
All right, sorry about that. The LA fires were shocking, and it's easy to feel powerless. But the situation is not hopeless. Ready?
Ready to go.
Okay. Some of my most experienced wildland firefighter friends are joining me on a bike tour of LA. Bike riding, tacos, and wildfire. We'll traverse the city from Pasadena to Malibu, looking at the vegetation and architecture and studying the landscape from a firefighter's perspective. Along the way, we'll share insights gained from decades working on large fires.
Pushes everything towards the ocean.
Right. Not looking forward to going out there at all.
We'll talk about the weather patterns that drive large fires.
I bet the inside of that house is gutted.
That's what it kind of looks like, yeah.
We'll provide practical tips and solutions to empower you and your community. Our goal? Rethinking how to live more safely with wildfires. The risks can be overwhelming, but having a better understanding of fire can make life in these fire-prone places feel a little bit less crazy. Yeah, so Steinberg is mentioning over in the chat right now, we used a ton of his footage, and then we also have a great interview with Michael Steinberg, NorCal Storm Chasing and Photography, Pyro-geography. We have a great interview on our site with him right after he came back from Palisades. So Michael's on the ground during the Palisades fire and Eden fire, right in the middle of the burning, shooting video, and just really amazing. So we've got a great breakdown there about how these fires spread in urban areas. So check it out, and yeah, and thanks to Steinberg for being a freaking rock star. Young buck pyro-geographer. This stuff's on our YouTube channel. If you look for the Lookout, check out Danger in Plain Sight. We got episodes 1, 2, and 3 in there. We also have a playlist. Episode 4 coming tomorrow, and episode 4 we go to Palisades, and here's the series 1, 2, 3. The one tomorrow we go to Palisades and we look at how could they rebuild in a more radically different way, right? Like when we talk about the Pacific Palisades, like there's places on the landscape that we just know are going to burn over and over and over again, you know. And if you think of like the way that this fire has been funneled up the hill today, like you wouldn't go and build a subdivision halfway up this slope. If you talk to anyone in fire, like we've done lots of stupid stuff in this country with building in really risky places that are in the way of fire. But what we're talking about is like, well, why rebuild something like that? You know, like, and here in Sonoma, like we have the Tubbs fire. It was kind of a great example here with the Tubbs. And the Handley before it, burning twice in 6 years through these neighborhoods, Fountain Grove. And post-fire, we've kind of bent over backwards to help people rebuild these neighborhoods that were devastated in the Tubbs fire. And so what we're saying in this series is like, why do that? Why, you know, of course there's a million reasons to let people go back and rebuild in a neighborhood that all burned down. But like, so in this case of this neighborhood here, if we go back to our historical imagery, which I love about Google Earth, let's go back to 2018, see if it'll draw it for us. Like, look, this entire subdivision got wiped out all these houses are gone, right? And now if we come back to current day, they're all rebuilt. And what a geographer sees when they look at this landscape is an east-west oriented gully that is aligned with the prevailing direction of fire spread coming this way. And we know, like, okay, we're going to continue to have fires in this country that are blown by strong east-west winds. Like, winds have been here forever. And so we know that the next time that happens, like, that is going to blow down through this gully and into this neighborhood again. And it's going to catch a house on fire, and then the fire is going to go from house to house. And it's like, it's really not outside the realm of possibility that this neighborhood is going to be destroyed by fire in my child's lifetime. And so if we look at where it was, you know, in 2018, this stuff is all like impossible. I know that we're just like talking fantasy land here, but like, hey, look, there's nothing here. We just paid like probably $10 million for FEMA to scrape that entire spot. So like, hey, how about maybe we redevelop this? Impossible, because people own lots and people want to rebuild on the same foundation or whatever. But like, hey, how can we do this different? How can we do it so we don't have houses like ding 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 ding? They're all going to burn in the next fire. Like, maybe we make this a park, soccer field or something, and then maybe we build the houses this way so they're like not all just gonna like chain reaction fire after another. So we know these things about landscapes, and there's all these reasons that make that impossible to think of that scale. But that's what I think of when I look at Palisades, is like, man, we're missing some opportunities to like we go and blindly rebuild. We know this area is aligned with future destruction. We know that the the vegetation is hardly phased by the fire. It's going to burn again. So let's think about that before we rebuild the exact same footprint. Let's be sensible about this stuff. So that's what the episode 4 of Palisades is about, is like, hey, how can we think about this differently? How can we stop pretending it will never happen again? And how can we just go through life knowing like, hey, this is going to happen again and again and again and again and again? You know, we know better. And so there's so many bureaucratic and political obstacles to, like, we talk a lot about achieving wildfire resilience, but we're not getting that deep into it. We pick away at like trying to like, okay, so now we're gonna like, in this neighborhood over here that all burned up in Fountain Grove, like now we're gonna spend like public money on like fire safe council, brush cutting, and everything else, trying to kind of basically fire safe a neighborhood that just by design is really set up for heartache. You know, so once something's built the wrong way in the wrong place, it's like, it's almost impossible to mitigate it. It's kind of like trying to put a bike path through a suburb that was built for cars. Like, it's super expensive. You really have to think kind of radically about a different vision. And it's too radical to really fly. You know, I'm not going to get elected to like the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors. Someone's going to find this video and say I'm anti-property rights or a radical or whatever. But that's why I like to look out. You guys, when you guys like send me like a PayPal donation, it's like one more advertiser that I don't have to like be beholden to, who's afraid that I'm going to like say something political and like hurt their brand or something. So I appreciate everything that you guys are doing to support this channel, because it allows me to tell the truth, or the truth as far as I know it. And I think that's, you know, that's why we have this channel, is that there's an appetite for kind of saying the truth. Most people, politicians, can't tell the truth. Fire agencies can't really tell the truth. So thanks for supporting us. And the truth is, right now, this fire is kind of cranking. Hey, thanks for that tip on donating directly to YouTube, not through. All right, C-130 just doubled the line on the right flank. Hey, thanks, Patrick Zink. Appreciate when people like when you guys can listen to the scanners and contribute to the conversation, because it helps. Because like, yeah, I can only like drive one computer at once, really. Clear the brush for sure. Someone says someone may want to think about putting a fire shelter in a high population area and spacing between homes. We're talking a lot about that now with planning. It's called TRAs, temporary refuge area, right? All right, so just so we're not just completely out in left field here, getting radical. Fire is slopping over into here, and so let's adjust our polygon here. And just say that it's kind of doing a little bit of that. We don't know what's happening elsewhere. Where's the fire at? This is a Pickett Fire, and we are in Napa County, headed for Lake County. So sorry for all these crazy labels, but Sacramento, Calistoga, Napa Valley, Santa Rosa, and this fire's cranking red along. We've got kind of an unofficial perimeter here that we're using, and yeah, here's Calistoga, Dutch Henry Canyon, Rattlesnake Ridge, Swartz Canyon, Etna Springs. A little farther out, you got Middletown. Right now, we're thinking Middletown's not really that threatened in the near term. Fire's gonna, here's what we worry about on this side as the fire kind of makes its way down the canyon here, is that they don't really, if it's over the ridge, which it looks like it is here, kind of fairly well established down here, out in here, they're not, air tankers aren't going to really stop it from doing that necessarily. And so if it gets down in the bottom here, what we look for, well, there's some little lingo here we'll drop on you. It's called a slope reversal. So fires kind of back their way down a hill, usually not in a huge hurry. But then when they get down to the bottom of the hill, they go up the hill in a hurry. And then they throw embers down in here, and then this goes up here. And so it doesn't take too long. It won't take too long necessarily for this fire to make its way up out of this basin if, you know, the thing that's going to prevent that right now is that we're late in the day, right? 6 o'clock. So if you look at the, look at these cameras, you got the shading of the column, and we're moving into afternoon deep shade. So possibly overnight, we're going to see this fire kind of become better established in this drainage here. This is one of those places where the night dropping helicopters have really changed. You know, I still kind of tend to be thinking of fire behavior in antiquated terms because for the bulk of my career, we haven't had night dropping helicopters. And in this kind of recent burn scar, kind of fine fuel, grass and brush, there's just not a lot of fuel for the fire to like really hang around. It's not like there's a lot of like old dead down logs. Like this fire, a lot of this stuff got cleaned up big time 5 years ago. So the night dropping helicopters are really a game changer. And it's likely that tonight the night dropping helicopters will be working this flank of the fire. It's very likely. And so stuff that traditionally, like in my experience, would have like taken out this whole basin, it might not happen. They might, you know, they might hold this fire. Like when you look at what happened last night on the Coyote, like they might hold this fire to a footprint that was like unimaginable 5 years ago, just because they're that much of a game changer. So we really don't know what's going to happen here, but we do know that like the topography here isn't like the Sierra Nevada. Like in the Sierra Nevada, we expect big downsloping winds because we've got like mountains that go up to like 12,000, 13,000 feet way off to the east to drain down into the valley every night. Here you've got this kind of broken topography. You might get some like mild downslope winds, but these mountain ranges aren't big enough to really create like massive diurnal wind cycles. You get a little bit of the cold air sinking off the mountains, but it's not it's a kind of different ball game than what you see in the Sierra Nevada. So let's come around to this angle here. Like, here's Mount St. Helena, and we got some webcams over on this mountain, and that's what we've been looking at. So this is St. Helena South. That's Pepperwood. Alright, so here's St. Helena North. Let's see if we can get St. Helena South. Alright, St. Helena South. So here we're taking perspective from this lower camera over towards the fire. And it still hasn't crossed that ridge that we were looking at there originally. Let's see, this camera hasn't updated for a couple hours, looks like, according to this animation. Alright, well, go to a different camera then. Right, St. Helena North. Oh man, all of us hitting the cameras. Here we go. It's churning. New perimeter, they say. All right, let's look for it. I got no perimeter. Which watch do you got? All right. Yeah, so watch duty is showing it. It's funny, I tried to go 3D and watch duty. They got similar, so they're showing it's well over the top of the divide. Here's the divide. There we go. All right, so our perimeter is a little janky. All right. Okay, so this new perimeter is captured 5:40, about 15 minutes ago. Shows the fire well established, kind of just starting to become established in the head of Dutch Henry Canyon at the top. And then well established on the backside of the ridge here in the head of Schwartz Canyon. Is it Schwartz? I see your Schwartz Canyon is as big as mine. All right, someone's buying stuff on Ko-fi. Big black forest equals big green wallet, says Save California. You guys crack me up. All right, well, so there you go. You got a big fire cranking up through a bunch of brush. Not a lot of houses out in the immediate area, but eventually you get out here to Angwin and there's a bunch of houses and none of them are cheap. If you want a cheap house, you got to go to Lake County. But Napa County, they see you coming and they hold on your wallet. Okay. Making the outline of a Winnebago. Glad some people got the reference there. All right, so since we just were looking at watch duty, I want to let you know about Squatch Duty. We've got some merch. Lookout merch. It's the way you can support the channel. And if you go to thelookout.org and don't edit the post, visit the site. We've got right here shop hats and mugs, and it should say t-shirts too. On thelookout.org. Click on there, it'll take you to our merch. And we got lookout hats, and we got soft Squatch stickers, burning Squatch, and we got Squatch Duty. And the idea behind Squatch Duty is that everyone who lives in the woods, it's kind of their duty to learn how to burn and do it safely. And Bigfoot is not off the hook for that. He lives in the woods, and he also needs to protect his assets. So if you support that philosophy, get on our Ko-fi site and get yourself a Lookout Squatch Duty shirt, designed by Zeke and Erica and printed in Chico. And we're gonna have some Squatch. We're gonna have this design on a hoodie for Christmas. All right, Squatch Duty. Someone says CDF probably stops flying at 6 p.m. All right, Squatch Duty. And we called them. We called up Squatch. We called up Watch Duty, and we said, "Hey, we want to do this shirt." And those dudes are super cool, and they're Lookout fans. And they said go for it. So yeah, we didn't want to. We're not throwing shade. We love Watch Duty. Those guys they're doing an amazing job, and appreciate what they're doing. So so get back to the map, and we won't. Let's see. So what's the fire gonna do? Once it goes over the hill and the sun goes down, it's gonna slow down a lot. But it's going to keep growing a bit. So one thing we haven't talked about right now is resource competition. All these night flying helicopters and everything else. Like, as long as you only have like one fire in town, you get all the toys. Our biggest fires happen when there's multiple starts across a wide area, and that's another good reason to kind of be aware of fire hazard and try not to do things like, someone just gave us a drone here at the Lookout, and I'm getting batteries for it tomorrow, and I want to go fly it because it's like, yeah, I got this drone, I want to fly it. But like, you're flying a drone out on a hot day and like it crashes or something, and the batteries, you can start a fire. And so little things like that, of just being aware of your surroundings, being aware of the conditions, like, hey, it's dry, it's hot, it's windy, like probably not a great time to go on a dirt bike ride when it's 105 and I'm riding up a south facing slope on a windy day. Like, probably not a good time to go drive my dozer up there to fix that cattle trough or whatever. Like, there's a lot you can do to kind of to improve the odds of not starting a fire. And one of those things is like, yeah, take a siesta, man. It's like, it's hot. Go out after the sun goes down. Like, because these critical periods of kind of like we're in right now, where we like, this is maybe the one hot, dry period of the summer that's got the highest hazard. Like, we don't need multiple fires starting, because a fire like this is going to take a lot of resources. And as soon as we got multiple large fires going, we start to lose fires on initial attack because we don't have the resources to throw at them. If you look at, like, right now at the air show on this fire, there's a lot of aircraft involved in this. We got an S2 and an S2 and an S2. We got a heavier tanker. Oh, 3 helicopters. 4 helicopters. Like, as soon as you start popping more fires, all these people get this force, this really potent force gets diluted. And so, yeah, we're lucky right now that there aren't more fires going on. It does make a difference. Who's making serial killer jokes, by the way? When the comments get too out of control, sometimes we just have to shut them down, you know? Just looking at some comments. Alright. See what else is going on here, people. I'm gonna run out of gas here. Is anything happening on Coyote? Alright. Sorry, I don't want to show you that. Just gonna go back to the fire, see what's happening, and might have to take a break. Okay, so it's cranking. This is what we're seeing here from Pepperwood Preserve. Is we're looking across from kind of from over here. Is Pepperwood here? Nope. We're seeing this fire kind of growing up in this area up in here. It still hasn't really crossed that ridge. Sorry, the cameras are laggy. I think we're all hitting them too hard. All of us kind of camera voyeurs, bogging down the systems. Steinberg, yeah, we can make you a moderator. I'll have Erica help out with that. If you're down, I'd love to help. Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to again to Steinberg, fellow Chico State geography alumni, and just been putting in the work, going to fires, doing the work, reading, coming out to burns, shooting video. Really glad that we can collaborate, Steinberg. Glad to have you on the chat. Appreciate your help. Appreciate all the stuff you're doing. I think it's great. Chico State represent. Yeah, and this camera's still locked up. So, like I said yesterday, like we've got a gazillion cameras, and one of the reasons that you see that these cameras were says image courtesy of PG&E is that PG&E has gotten in trouble for so many different fires they've started that they've had to pay tons of fines and restitution, and part of them kind of getting out of jail almost literally for starting the Camp Fire and the Dixie Fire. They've had to make massive investments in wildfire hazard reduction, and one of the ways that they're doing that is by sponsoring this camera network that we love and that we use for everything. However, the jury is still out on whether or not having cameras and knowing that every fire starts right away is really moving the dial on reducing the size and extent of fires, because like this fire, if you looked at the Coyote fire yesterday, there were like 30 cameras pointing at it within like 5 minutes. But that didn't change the fact that it was burning in this inaccessible canyon with poor road access in a hot, dry day at the bottom of a junction of 3 different canyons. So there's a lot of interest in technical solutions to the wildfire crisis, but it's not clear that those investments necessarily are paying off. PG&E spent several billions of dollars on vegetation management around their lines, but that kind of work doesn't, like, once a Dixie fire starts, it doesn't matter if you've got power line clearance on all the lines that are inside the burn. So oftentimes I think that tech world is kind of trying to solve some of the wrong, they're using their horsepower to try to solve the wrong problem sometimes. The problem is that we've got too many people who've built and live and have fire prone assets out in the middle of high fire hazard landscapes. And so we could spend a lot of the money we're spending on tech. Like, do we need artificial intelligence powered fire detection? Like, is that going to change the outcome, or could we spend those millions of dollars that we're putting into these tech systems on helping people change the siding on their house, giving people grants to take out the rosemary bushes around their house, buying vent screens that are smaller that keep embers from getting into people's attics and burning their house down. If you check out episode 3 of our LA series, we talk a lot about specifics of home hardening, and a bunch of solutions. Like we look at a rental that we had for our trip, and we do an inspection and say, like, oh, you should change this, you should change that. So if you're interested in that stuff, we got stuff on the website about that. PG&E needs to control the wind too. All right. Yes, all the cameras right now are kind of maxed out. So maybe we'll stop hitting them and just say the fire is well established in difficult terrain and likely to burn for a while. If you are within, let me do what we did yesterday. We have kind of these what we call range rings, and let's just show some of those on this fire so people get an idea of like how far from the fire they are. And a shout out to CalTopo. This is CalTopo is a free mapping program that works on the internet off a browser, and it's got really a lot of different really useful mapping tools, and you can pay a little extra to all right, so we're just going out 5 miles from the fire right now, from the center of the fire. Sorry about that. All right, so right now Angwin is about 4 miles from the fire, 4.5 miles from the fire. Etna Springs about the same. Pope Valley is more than 5 miles from the fire, from the center of the fire. like we said earlier, we don't really expect right now that the fire is going to cross the valley and burn towards Mark West Springs. I think it's pretty unlikely. But there's potential for the fire to grow significantly out here towards Etna Springs. Availability of night helicopters is going to help because this area did burn. So just if you are just joining us, when you look at the fire history here, this area all burned in the glass fire in 2020. And so it's burning mainly in kind of fuels that have been significantly reduced in the last 5 years by that fire. So, but there's a lot of grass and light brush, and makes for the fire that will spread fast, but it also makes for a terrain that where air resources like helicopter drops and retardant can be pretty effective in this landscape that's dominated by this grass. So, what time is it? I'm going to bail out. I've been on for 2 hours, and that is kind of enough. We'll get back on here if something dramatic happens. Otherwise, we'll come back and do a report in the morning. Totally appreciate your guys' participation. Make sure you check out the Lookout. The Lookout is where all it's our archive, really. You know, we got, and while you're there, consider becoming a monthly subscriber, because that really is how I'm making my living. Or buying a t-shirt or a coffee mug. I pissed off an elder, and he said, "Go sell your t-shirts somewhere else." And I deserved it. But my wife is a potter, and she's making these really nice Lookout coffee mugs. So it's another way you can support the Lookout. But this is our site. Got stickers, got hats, got shirts. I was thinking we should sell tank tops just so it could truly be a Lookout experience. So with that, I'm going to queue up my sponsors and bail out. We do want you to be sure to watch our series. Get on the YouTube channel and tell your friends, because we spent a ton of time and energy making that thing, and we want more people to watch it because we're really proud of it, and right now it's not going viral, so tell your friends. See you, everyone.
I don't want nothing, and it looks like that's what I'm gonna get. Sometimes I feel I need something. Taking my time and to ever forget about everything. Too much things running around in my brain, so come on, sweetness. I want you to ease the pain. Oh, love me, baby. Let me need it. Excuse me, mama. Then catch the door, no, I didn't dream it. I guess I do want something, but I can't seem to find it yet. Sometimes I feel like I'm nothing. You say I'm nothing you could ever forget. Well, that's just one thing. You said the kids were hanging on. Sometimes I could just scream.